Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island. Let me start with this question. If you had to name the best argument the president's lawyers made over the last 3 or 4 days, what would it be?
It's hard to sort that out because they made a dozen arguments or more. I think they were trying to build as many off-ramps as they could away from the real question that Congressman Jeffries just described. And it was almost like, you know, take it or leave it. We've got 15 different arguments for you. If any one of them feels good to you, go ahead and use it. Just whatever you do, don't look at the core evidence in the middle of this case. I mean, if there's one core piece of evidence in the middle of this case, it's that the president's agent, Rudy Giuliani, and one of his officials appointed to the Ukraine problem tried to get into President Zelensky's talking points the promise about investigating the Bidens.
Yes.
They never even addressed that critical fact. If there's one center point fact in this whole case, that's it. Instead, they said Giuliani is irrelevant. He's a distraction. No, he's the president's central agent in this. Bolton is inadmissible, and he's just trying to sell his book. The only reason the book might be inadmissible is because Bolton is available to testify, for Pete's sake. So bring him in, or the book is second best evidence, and that's what you're stuck with. But these arguments just turn on themselves, and they churned, and it was really a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo nonsense, and at the end of the day, never addressed what Congressman Jeffries just described, which is the president's push to get a private citizen investigated by a foreign country so he could weaponize that information in his campaign. They never addressed that.
You just mentioned John Bolton, who, of course, looms all over all this. We began tonight's show with discussion of the sort of where things are in the Republican caucus. Obviously, you're not in that meeting. But I wonder what the discussions are on the Democratic side about what exactly happens next year. You've got 2 days of questions, how you're preparing for that, how you're gaming out what procedural votes might come after.
Well, let me first say I was not in the Republican meeting, but I was in the hallway outside as the Republican senators streamed out to go to that meeting on what should have been their highest happy hour of this whole impeachment episode, as the president's defenders finished up with a great crescendo of showing, you know, what a great guy he was and what a terrible case the Democrats had. There was none of that. This was not a happy crowd of people. They had been apparently deeply misled by the White House, which is not a good thing. Bolton is hanging out there all over this with relevant testimony that it's really hard to explain why you don't want to hear. They're divided within their caucus. So it was a very, very somber and unhappy group of faces walking down that hallway into that room. Not what you would expect.
I just keep thinking of gaming this out, and I'm curious what your read on this. I mean, if they vote for no witnesses on Friday, if McConnell's able to win the votes, and then they acquit the president, you know, and then, I don't know, a month from now, the excerpts start to leak of the Bolton book. And
yeah, exactly.
I mean, and I guess they're going to be okay with that. That's just, they've kind of bought their ticket. They're going to take the ride, but it's a wild scenario to consider.
There's really no good outcome for them. They may evade the immediate wrath of McConnell and the big donors and President Trump, but they jump out of that frying pan and they're now into the very public fire over months and months and months and months about the information on this scheme continuing to come pouring out from Bolton, from Giuliani, from other sources that are in litigation right now. There's a whole array of ways in which they're going to look in November at the election time back at this interim period and be facing an awful lot of voters who said, now, wait a minute, you knew this evidence was out there and you didn't bother to even bring it in and look at it before you voted? How is that fair? And I don't think that's a question they can answer right now. So it's a tough position that they're in. Deservedly, by the way.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, thank you so much for making time tonight. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.